say about Jimmy Garoppolo now that he's moved on? Just what he meant to the team.
Great guy. I mean, I'm so happy for him. You know, knowing that he gets to reunite with Josh. I have a ton of respect for Josh, and I think it's great for him to have somebody that's coached him before, that knows him. But in terms of, you know, getting to the Super Bowl in 2019, like we don't get there without Jimmy. You know, trading up for Trey and Jimmy stepping up last year and getting it, you know, 2 seasons ago, getting us to the NFC Championship game and stepping in this year. I mean, he's a consummate pro. He's a great guy, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Jed, what's it been like for you to get to the NFC Championship game for 3 of the past 4 seasons, Super Bowl ones, and still not have the Lombardi?
Like, I mean, if you don't set your expectations high enough, then I think you're cheating yourself. And you know, generally you're going to be disappointed in this league, and I want to make sure that we're around the hoop. And you know, being in the NFC Championship game obviously gives you an opportunity to get to the ultimate prize, and that's what we're fighting for. And we're not going to stop fighting until we get that prize, and we're going to keep going, and we're going to always continue to push our limits and sort of what we're trying to accomplish. But I'm proud of this group of guys. I mean, I don't know that anybody, certainly 2 seasons ago, was going to look and say, yeah, this team's destined to be in the NFC Championship game. You know, and the things that we went through this year, going through multiple quarterbacks and just a lot of things thrown our way. Like, our guys, they find a way to compete week in and week out, and they find a way to make you proud. And I'm proud of them, but we're going to keep working, and the ultimate goal is to get that trophy.
Do you feel you need to change something to get over the hump, or do you feel you guys have a championship formula and you just need to stick with it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think Coach Belichick talked about it, Parcells talked about it. Like, the only way to get to a Super Bowl, you have to get into the playoffs. And I think when you're a team that can consistently get to the playoffs, you have an opportunity. And sometimes I think the 21 season was a great example. You know, you get hot towards the end of the season, and you're the team that kind of makes a run and has a chance that no one thought that was going to be the case in October, November. So again, when you have an opportunity to get yourself into the playoffs, you have an opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. And for us, you know, we added, you know, a couple guys in free agency. We're never going to be a huge spender, but I think when we do spend, we want to make sure that it's deliberate. And you know, making the trade for Christian last year, getting Javon and a few others in free agency this year, you want to make sure that you're adding to the club and making sure that you're giving yourself a chance to win.
Both Kyle and John talked about how they were talking to you and you gave them full support in getting Javon Hargrave. I mean, that's kind of a big ticket guy to go into the offseason, you know, free agency with.
But I mean, again, like going back to Scott McCloughan, Mike Nolan days, like, we've never been like a huge spend in free agency club. That's not really our belief. But when you're going to spend in free agency, you better make it count, because you're going to spend a lot of money. And you know, knowing Javon, I remember we loved him when he was coming out of college. Like, it was a guy that they liked very much. Watching him play, you know, obviously last year he played very well against us in the NFC Championship game, and he's a guy that he can make a difference. And when you have a Super Bowl caliber defensive line, it gives you a chance to compete against the best teams in this league, and that's who we have to beat if we want to win a Super Bowl.
In that same vein, Kyle was just kind of alluding to the idea of how important it is to have guys on rookie contracts and the way you guys are approaching it, building out the roster. How much philosophically have you guys kind of had to shift your tone in terms of that stuff?
I mean, I don't know if that it's shifting. You always want to make sure you draft well. Like, there's nobody that is going to compete for a championship that didn't draft somebody very well. You have to hit somewhere on your draft picks. And I think we've done a good job. Ideally, you're re-signing your own guys because you know exactly what you're getting when you're re-signing people. But when you're going into free agency, I think our opinion has always been, if you're going to do it, like, just make sure that it counts. You know, adding, Mooney, it was a great pickup for us. You know, being able to add Sherm a few years ago, like, when you're adding guys, you want them to be really good football players and good teammates. And I think that's what we did with Javon this year. And I mean, even Sam and Cleveland, like, they're guys that you're excited about, that have a chance to be really, really impactful players.
Obviously, part of the equation to make this happen is also letting guys go, so you can keep it sustainable. When you look back at when you hired John and Kyle back in 2017, was the comp pick formula, all this, was this all part of their kind of overarching vision, or is that kind of developed over time?
I mean, I think that's something that we've always strived for. Yeah, I give a lot of credit to Prague for how much he and his team put into how we do our contracts, how we approach the salary cap, and knowing that comp picks, as much as you would like to re-sign people, you can't re-sign everybody. But if you're going to let people go, do you want to sign somebody else and maybe cost yourself a third or a fourth round pick? You just have to ask yourself that question before you make decisions in free agency. And I think we've done fairly well in those third, fourth, fifth rounds. And those are very, very valuable picks for us. And you just have to be patient. I mean, like the Christian trade last year, there's always somebody that's going to be available at some point in the season. It might not be the specific person that you were looking for. I don't know that we were looking for a running back, but when that opportunity came up last year, we had some ammunition and we thought, all right, let's go for it. And when the Rams are in it, it's like, all right, we're competing with these guys first and foremost for the division, but we played them the year before in the NFC Championship game. I would much rather get a great player than have them get a great player. And you have to be prepared to be able to go make those decisions. And when you have an extra third round pick, when you have a few extra third round picks or fourth round picks, it makes it a lot easier to make those types of trades.
There seems to be a big level of trust with John and Kyle to really let them do their thing and let them take the reins. Was that something that you decided when you hired them you were going to let them have that, or is it earned over time?
I mean, it's a combination of the two. Like, obviously, trust is earned and it's reestablished in any relationship that you have. But that's what you need in order to be successful. You have to be able to make mistakes in order to get to a championship. And I mean, I've been around folks where you're looking at every single draft decision that you make or every single trade that you make, and you're looking at it from an individual standpoint. Versus, we've been in 3 NFC Championship games and 1 Super Bowl in the last 4 years. That's a pretty good run. It's not ultimately where we want to be, but it's a pretty good run. I'm looking more at what is the overall composition of this team and what have we achieved, as opposed to did our second round pick play X amount of snaps. That's not going to move the needle. Now, you need more of those things to hit than not, but you're going to miss. I mean, everybody that's in the Hall of Fame has missed on draft picks. Bill Walsh has missed on draft picks. You look at Ron Wolf, he's missed on draft picks, but the ones that you hit, you have to hit. And I think we've done a good job of hitting on some guys internally, and we've done a good job bringing people in.
I guess you kind of alluded to this, but like you're along those lines, you
can't believe I almost interrupted you to go to Grant.
You traded, up to get to number 3 to take Trey Lance, and now, pick 262 is, the leader in the clubhouse. How does that make you feel as an owner to not see all that money going to Trey, and yet the guy who was the last pick is in line to be the starter?
I mean, I wouldn't change anything that we've made about the decision with Trey. I think Trey has a chance to be great, but it's a bonus when you get somebody at the end of the 7th round that ends up coming in and being very impactful for your team. And I mean, I've said it multiple times with quarterbacks, whether it was Alex and Cap, watching Jimmy and Trey, and now, Brock and Trey and Sam, you can't have enough good quarterbacks. Like, I wish that we can go back in time and Steve Bono could be my 3rd string quarterback behind 2 future Hall of Famers. Like, that's fantastic. That gives you a chance to win and be very, very successful in this league. Again, you can't worry about, Trey hasn't played as many games as we would have liked. It's not his fault. I mean, he got injured, right? And when you look at when we drafted him, we wanted to make sure that we had a young quarterback on a rookie contract that allows you to be able to say, all right, like, Javon's kind of a bonus, right? Like, I mean, there's a delta in what you're spending on your quarterback versus what somebody else is spending on their quarterback. And I hope that one of these 3 guys gets a massive, massive extension with the San Francisco 49ers at some point. But until that, we're going to make sure that we build this thing around a young quarterback with a very team-friendly contract. And again, the ultimate goal is to win a championship. It's not to say that this draft pick or this decision was the perfect decision. It's to win a Super Bowl.
In retrospect, was Trey too much of a project for a win now team? Did you need someone, a rookie contract, a rookie quarterback who's ready to go?
I mean, you know, we were laughing with Josh McDaniels, my dad and I. We were talking, and Josh is 2 years older than me. He went to John Carroll with a bunch of my buddies, and he was talking about, you know, great about Brock. Like I missed on Brock. You know, I didn't see him, and I was congratulating him on Jimmy. And my dad always loves to talk about like the biggest misses in the draft. And, like number one was Joe Montana. Like, you know, he's a 3rd round pick. Like if you knew Joe Montana was Joe Montana, like, he's not a 3rd round pick. Tom Brady, if you knew that he was Tom Brady, like he's not a 6th round pick. And that's the beauty of this game. You don't know what player is going to step up and play at what position and at what moment. So you have to make sure that, again, like that's the most important position in this league. You're not winning a championship unless you have somebody that's at least a very good quarterback, if not an extremely great quarterback. And we're going to always invest in that position. And I wouldn't change anything about investing in that position.
The vision of having, you know, quarterbacks on rookie contracts so you can have higher priced guys around them, is that something that Kyle and John brought to the table, or just over time?
I mean, again, like there's a lot of things that seem very easy. Like this game is it's not complicated, but it's not easy, right? Like it's easy to say like we're gonna draft a rookie quarterback and he's gonna play like Russell Wilson did and help the Seahawks get to where they needed to go, and you're gonna build a great defense around them. Like it's easy to say that. It's much harder to actually do it. So you just can't worry about if you make a mistake somewhere along the way, if you have a hiccup somewhere along the way in any of your decision-making process. It's about the ultimate goal. It's about getting to championship games. It's about getting to the Super Bowl. And again, like that's what we strive for, and that's it. And again, it is looking at the overall portfolio, not the individual stocks in your portfolio. What is your overall return? And that's how we try to grade ourselves.
Joe, just a report about borrowing money from the fund for Levi's stadium upgrades. Can you talk a little bit about that? Will that be a formality as far as you being able to get that money, and then what will some of those upgrades look like?
I mean, none of them are a formality. Generally, those are approved, and right. You know, they go through committee, so I feel fairly comfortable that will be approved. But when you spend a lot of money building a new stadium, you watch some of the stadiums that aren't upgraded, and it's very easy for them to fall in disrepair. You want to make sure that you're investing and reinvesting in your stadium, because I went through a stadium process. Like it's not a fun, you know, making you younger and energetic type of process. So the more that we can enhance Levi's Stadium and the more that we can put into the stadium and keep it our home for a long period of time, we're going to continue to do that. I think the Chiefs are a great example of that. I mean, this is one of the things I always talked about on the campaign trail for the stadium. Arrowhead and Candlestick were, I think, not built in the same year, but the Niners started playing at Candlestick the same year that Arrowhead was built. And if you go to Arrowhead, like, it might not be the newest stadium, but they've done an amazing job keeping up a stadium that's 50 plus years old. So that's the difference, and I think that helps your organization, it helps your community to continue to invest in something that you've sort of done together, versus saying, oh, we're not going to do anything and we're going to try to take as much money out of this as we can, and then in 20 years we're going to go build a new one. That's just not a very sustainable model, certainly in Northern California. I don't think it's a very sustainable sort of outset in general. So we're going to continue to invest in Levi's and make sure that it's a great stadium for a long, long time to come.
A stadium-related question. Here we go. Why was Jim Mercurio part of those layoffs? And I guess just following up, was that related? Are you looking for something different as far as the operation of Levi's?
You know, I'm not going to get into personnel decisions, certainly on the non-football side. But we always want to make sure that Levi's is a great experience and a great place for fans to come to, and you know, we'll continue to make sure that it's a best-in-class experience.
And what's your interest level and optimism as far as bringing the Super Bowl 60 to Levi's Stadium?
I mean, my optimism is very high. We are not voting today or at this meeting. I think they're voting at the May meetings for that. I feel fairly confident. I don't know for sure that we're going to get Super Bowl 60, but I feel very confident that we're going to get a Super Bowl in the near future. And it would be great to get Super Bowl 60 after hosting Super Bowl 50. Feels like Super Bowl 50 wasn't that long ago. But it would be fantastic to be able to bring that game, you know, certainly after bringing the World Cup to Levi Stadium and having the Super Bowl to follow that. I think those are two, I mean, truly the largest sporting events in the world, and having those back-to-back would be fantastic. And I mean, that's something that, you know, obviously the number one goal is to win a Super Bowl and to win multiple Super Bowls, but you want to make sure that you are a best-in-class organization. And when you look at the folks that we've fostered and sort of helped get to, and I don't want to take full credit for anything of their careers, but being a part of that, it's special to see that we've been able to add people to the highest levels in sports. And you know, there's a lot of folks that are presidents of teams outside of the 49ers that started at the 49ers, and I take a lot of pride in seeing people from our organization that were a part of our organization, sort of grew up in our organization, being very successful.
Are you proud of the report card you got from the NFLPA?
I mean, I didn't read, like, I try not to dive too deep into those things, but I feel like we treat our players with respect, and I think we can always do a better job. I mean, that started with my uncle, right? Like, he always wanted to make sure that his players had everything that they need. And I remember, I mean, we talked to some of the scheduling folks last night. Like, well, you know, you guys have a lot of East Coast games this year, and, you know, is that tough for you? I'm like, that's why we try to stay. I'm like, and I don't know that staying in the same place every year is ideal, but if you have to spend $1 million to stay somewhere, but that takes 10 hours of travel out, and it takes inflammation out for guys, and it gives you a better chance to win a game, like, I will spend $1 million any time to win a game. I think Al Davis had a great quote about that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but like, if I can spend $1 million to win every single game, like, I would do that every single day. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.